Hello.
Hey everyone, and welcome to Sunday's weekly roundup with Extinction Rebellion. Um, as it is the 11th of April, we're going to be covering actions over the last 2 weeks that have been happening over the Easter period. I'm one of your co-hosts, Henry Addy Topping. I'm a Extinction Rebellion live streamer, and I'm also a politics student at the University of Exeter. And I'm here with
Janet, and I'm from Plastics Rebellion. Plastics Rebellion have been around since the first rebellion, and we are a group of people who are kicking the arse of plastic. I'll tell you about that in a minute after you've told us a bit about yourself, Henry.
Oh yes, of course. So yeah, as I said, I'm a politics student, and I've got a great interest in civic engagement. So interested, in fact, that I've made a university study called Rethinking Environmental Justice, Intersectionality and the Priorities of Social Justice Activism. And I just thought that given that climate justice, which Extinction Rebellion, it stems from environmental justice, and environmental justice is highly intersectional with its roots in equity and racism, particularly in the US. I wondered why, contemporary XR has seemed across that one would expect from a going to be looking at the movement, looking at its tactics, and being, in a discussion with activists who would appreciate sort of scholarly frameworks such as risk perception and appreciation of sociological loss. And in order to interrogate 21st century solutions that might improve the reach and scope of Extinction Rebellion, especially as it started to reach out into new sort of forms of activism or new repertoires. Yes, back to you, Janet.
Great. So Plastics Rebellion, briefly, we talked a lot about whose fault the absolute horror show is that is the plastics crisis. It's a direct sort of manifestation of the climate crisis itself. 9% of plastic ever made has been recycled. There are no plans to recycle any of it. It's all greenwashing. So we decided to direct most of our actions against government and specifically industry. Industry are very powerful at lobbying government. They got a large amount of bailout during the COVID crisis. So one of our first actions was at the British Plastics Federation. We're going to see a quick film of that coming up.
Oh, I think he's actually he's actually read it.
It's quite a difficult concept to grasp. The concept of continually producing more and more plastic and recycling all of that plastic all of the time forever. Now, maybe I'm stupid, but I think that means we're going to end up with a shitload more plastic than we have now. And we already have more than we can deal with.
You believe that we are eating effectively a credit card's worth of plastic every week. There's so much plastic around us. It's a huge problem. As this banner says, plastic kills.
What's on the agenda? Give us a
Okay, so we have 10 o'clock registration and refreshments. We have 10:30 government hand washing of the whole problem with hapless government DEFRA flunky Chris Preston grapples with the duality of not pissing off the plastics industry whilst trying to save the sea.
Yeah, so that was an interesting action. Interestingly, thinking about the police bill that's going on at the moment, we were pretty leniently policed at that protest. I think the police just thought it was ridiculous that the entire British Plastics Federation Sustainability Conference escaped through a fire exit because they were barricaded in by about 6 dozen yogurt pots. There's a very different police response at our most recent protest, which was outside INEOS with Joe Corrie of talk fracking, Vivienne Westwood's son. I think we've got a clip coming from that now.
These are the headquarters of INEOS.
Yeah, these are them here. You'll see, you know, up there in these offices, you've got all these people working for INEOS. You'll see on that door over there that they've got a sign about their injunction, which actually makes it illegal to step into this area right outside the office. That was the injunction that we challenged in court, and we won. You know, they tried to game the British legal system and bring in all kinds of laws to stop protest. Together with other activists, we managed to bring various cases against them, and although we lost in the first court case, we won at appeal. And since that time, these companies like INEOS have not been able to use these sort of super injunctions that they tried to impose in order to stop people protesting and in order to stop people demonstrating their human rights.
Yeah, so to cut a long story short, we got shut down by the police. That protest was a couple of months ago. Actually, no, just before Christmas, actually. So it brings us on nicely to our first news item, right, Henry, which is about the Kill the Bill protests.
Yes, yeah. So Kill the Bill. What an event. What a phenomena. You know, you got the actions last year. All were highly unpopular with the institutions that be, and as a result, the police and Priti Patel, they drafted a new police crime sentencing and courts bill, which is currently going through the policy process. And you see, this bill, it dramatically clamps down on sort of exile tactics, civil disobedience, you know, obstructing the roads, any sort of loud sort of procession that's, you know, designed to cause a little bit of disruption to sort of prove a point and capture the public, you know, the public's attention span. Anything like that is going to be deemed an offence, an arrestable offence at that. And quite frankly, what this really means is that the police, law, are getting granted huge latitudinal power to what type of action is arrestable, and you know, it's really quite dangerous for all forms of action, not rebellion. I mean, there's a section of the bill that is specifically targeting damage done to property, to statues, and that sort of echoes the Black Lives Matter and All Black Lives protests, where the Churchill statues were vandalised, and in Bristol, the statue of that was sort of dragged. It ignores the fact that these statues were pulled down for sort of in cultural race, and it just sort of arrests these people and silences them. And, the same is happening with protest assemblies. They're all getting marginalized by the law, and this is why Kill the Bill has emerged. You know, it's all these movements that are designed to target specific social justice, climate justice, coming together to protect their right to protest, because that is under threat by the rise in authoritarianism that's taking place.
Yeah, I think we've got some really wise words actually from Jeremy Corbyn. I think Ferg managed to catch up with him at the Marble Arch Kill the Bill just last weekend. I don't know if we've got that film to run in, or if I've gone slightly off the running order.
Quickly, this crime bill, what does it mean to ordinary people?
Restrictions of protest and overpowering police who will have too much control over how we conduct our civil lives in the future. It's a very dangerous bill.
And you've been advocating protesting your whole life, anti-war, been on the streets, you've been arrested. If this bill was now, back then, you'd probably be in jail by now.
Well, we would have not been allowed to protest against apartheid. We'd not been able to protest against the trade union legislation of the 1970s. It applied in the USA. The civil rights movement would never have got off the ground, and so on. Once you control people's rights to say anything, you're actually shutting down on democratic voices.
And is this a slippery slope to like an authoritarian state?
Well, I think it should be taken in the context of the Overseas Operations Bill, which means that British forces can serve overseas and we don't even know what they're doing or why they're there. We should take this in the context also of the overweening powers in the COVID bill, particularly Schedule 21, which I opposed when it came up for renewal in Parliament a couple of weeks ago.
And it looks like within the bill, the Home Secretary can actually then change and make up laws. It's like 307 pages of laws.
Very dangerous precedent is known as Henry VIII powers, where Henry VIII took enormous powers unto himself, and successive governments have always added little clauses at the end of a bill saying the Secretary of State may bring forward regulations which does not require primary votes in Parliament. It's a very dangerous precedent and a very slippery slope. And Henry VIII would have been happy with this piece of legislation, by the way, were he still around.
Well, back then there was like people's heads were like getting chopped off for not doing proper jobs. But if this goes, it's going to get forced through because there's a majority in
Well, don't give up on it. It's only got one stage through in Parliament so far. They've delayed the continued committee stage of it. It's now how we protest against it that matters.
And do you think collectively we can make a difference?
Collectively, we can always make a difference. Unity and collections.
Amazing, amazing. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
I think Jeremy needs to join us. I mean, he's making complete sense. I think, he's a veteran protester. I used to see him at the City of London anti-apartheid group outside the South African Embassy way back in the 80s. So nice one, Jeremy. Come and join us. I think, Henry, we've got some shots of the same kind of Kill the Bill demos around the country. Is that right?
Yes, I think we have some of that next. I just wanted to say as well, I mean, if we have time, this bill not only attacks, these mainstream sort of actions that you see in the streets of London and the cities, but it also has an effect on HS2 protests that are taking place in the wilderness. It creates extra offences, it broadens the scope of offensive that can be given to people who are trespassing on land without consent, or they're blocking off land with vehicles. This directly sort of, attacks people who are camping in tree camps, and, trying to prevent HS2. And it, also, takes precedent in sort of different forms of action that are happening in trees all over across the country. So,
for sure. Plus the Rebellion One, which we'll be coming to later. So let's take a look at some of the clips from the actions around the country.
Yeah. Vision, we're still fighting to be free. The images of black.
A fantastic job, and I would like to make that very, very clear.
Amazing. I think next actually we've got so much to show you. So much has been happening. We've got an amazing speech now from Clare Farrell, also at the Kill the Bill, coming up now.
The police crimes and sentencing bill is an opportunist crackdown on our freedom of speech and civil liberties. But it is not only this bill. Judicial review is under threat. The Spy bill will offer power and impunity to agents with grave implications for our human family all over the world, as well as here in the UK. The commitment to globally ecological vandalism constitutes racism from the UK on a vast global scale, and it will continue to break down our climate. And we know that the majority of our brothers and sisters around the world will face the fiercest and most immediate impacts. And it's quite obvious to even the most casual observer that this government is drunk on power. It is drunk on exceptionalism, unsafe importance, and entitlement. Who do they think they are? That they can divide and rule us? exists.
So that was pretty amazing. That was Clare Farrell exercising her right to be not only a nuisance, but a loud nuisance. She's great to see. Henry? I think we've got something else to introduce. Shall I carry on? And then I think you're going to come back with some chat about Barclays. Yeah. So we had an amazing action to launch Money Rebellion on April Fool's Day, which was the perfect day to launch it. It was called Fossil Fools. And outside the Bank of England, we had some fools pointing out the complete and utter travesty of a sham that the Bank of England is completely failing to regulate the banks, who have backed fossil fuel industries to the tune of $3.8 trillion. The message was very clear. I think we have a video to show you, hopefully.
Yeah. Oh, lad, seriously, man. Oh, no, it's fine.
Is that the way to do it? That's the way to do it. Addicted to growth, addicted to fossil fuels. You can't have infinite growth on a finite planet. That's not the way to do it.
I just love that action. It's so creative, so clever, so simple. Yeah, you know, some of the stats that came out of that action were just mind-blowing. And in terms of bailouts during the pandemic recovery, you know, these banks have been responsible for bailing out EasyJet, Rolls-Royce, yeah, because we all need Rolls-Royces, as Dolly Spartan said in that video. Ineos, petrochemical industries, fossil fuel companies. So, you know, long may these Money Rebellion actions keep going. I think, Henry, you've got news of some more, haven't you?
Yeah, I mean, what a great way to start the Money Rebellion, right? You know, it's like it signifies a serious change in Extinction Rebellion's tactics. You know, their civil disobedience repertoire, it's under attack, you know, by the state, you know, and that means that something is happening, be that positive or negative, and the activists are now responding by sort of dialing up their clarity on the issue and how they feel. And you know, it's amazing, as you say. You know, you've got banks like Barclays invested, like, I think something like £3 trillion since the Paris Agreement, and then obviously all these banks pretty heavily still invested in the sort of assets and industries that contribute to the 3.5 degrees global warming a year, which is, you know, leading to sort of irreversible damage. But I mean, Money Rebellion, you know, it's also resulted in something else, something that's quite interesting, something that we both disagree on ever so slightly. You know, I've said to you, you know, before, I said that I think it's quite an interesting concept, and like the idea that you know, as we can't really take to the streets anymore, and as, you know, our rights are getting reduced, it's inventive, sure, that our protest refusing to pay the percentage of tax, that's excise calculated as the amount of money each year that they take, and then they pump into the fossil fuels. But I mean, of course, this is really dangerous because, you know, not everyone can really afford to do this, and you know, some people will do this anyway. And, you know, the HMRC, as much as it's admirable that you try and take them on, they're just an institution. They will just see that this person is not paying it back, and they'll you know, give your debt to the debt collectors, and you know, unfortunately, these selfless people, these, you know, amazing people who are going to be these tax rebels, are putting themselves in a serious position of vulnerability. So yeah, I mean, but what do you say to that? You know, because I do know there is a counter argument, of course.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's not exactly a counter argument. I'm just like, I think you have to do whatever you can do, and you know, you can't beat yourself up if you're not prepared to have a custodial sentence. Of course, obviously, the risk is it won't be a custodial sentence, even if that's what you want. It might just be, you know, the bailiffs coming around and taking everything you've got. But you know, I get around that by having nothing. I think we've got a film actually, haven't we, of the Barclays Seven, which is the window breaking action that happened last week. Should we take a look?
Yeah. I feel like that really highlights the sort of creative element to the Money Rebellion. You know, bringing those colours into the outfit, and you know, the purple, the green, the white, and smashing windows. You know, really sort of symbolic stuff, and it really does, you know, create headlines in itself. But however, it's so sad to see how the media has, you know, twisted this into something that it's really not. You know, resembling this selfless, peaceful act as something akin to Kristallnacht, and you know, Nazism. You know, where do these guys get off? You know, this is really not that. You know, and if you see from those images, you see these are just women who feel really strongly that, you know, the environment matters. You know, and that these banks need to start, you know, uninvesting in these destructive assets. You know, that's ultimately what they're saying. You know, and
yeah.
What's your take
Absolutely.
on this?
And I agree. You know, I mean, I don't think this can be seen as a violent action. I know, you know, when we're in XR, we talk about a spectrum of violence done with such loving intent and with such care and such attention to safety. My personal feeling is that it's within the remit of non-violence. But if we take a look at Gail, I think you'll see even further why that's the case. We've got a video of Gail coming up. Gail Bradbury.
Oh. 118 billion. This is what this bank has spent funding fossil fuels and biodiversity loss since the Paris Agreement. The banks have spent over $3 trillion. We're now heading for 2 degrees of warming. The target of 2050, Barclays, is not with the science. Stop profiting from killing my kids' future. Stop profiting from destroying communities across the world. And Priti Patel, you were celebrating the suffragettes when you were promoting Brexit. This is what they did, and it was a proportionate response then, and this is a minor and proportionate response now.
Such eloquence, and you know, anyone who is going to point the finger in the media calling that a violent act needs to really pay attention to what Gail's saying. I found that really moving. So moving on, we've got another action, which is another fabulous action, the Dirty Scrubbers action. I'm going to let you take a look if you don't already know what it is. Here it is. Yeah, so Henry, over to you if you want to talk us through it.
It was very moving.
So I think we might recognise some of these rebels from the fossil fools action as well. So they're basically, the metaphor is that this is dirty money. Where actually are they, Henry? I've not got my notes on this one.
So yeah, talk me through some of this. The symbolics behind this this act. You know, I can see visually they've got boxes.
And the next action that we've got, actually a short video for, we've got a couple coming up. We've got the Barclays action for Money Rebellion, which is in Wallingford, and that's going to be followed by Scientists Rebellion as well. So first of all, we're going to take... Amazing. I was intrigued when I was watching the live stream of the Money Rebellion fossil fuels action, actually, that Andrew Medhurst was talking, and he used to work in the city. And he was talking about the, you know, if we keep the pressure up and sustainability of these actions, in other words, sort of just keep doing it, don't give up, keep going back, we're going to embarrass these people, these managers and the CEOs. You know, there's going to become a massive conflict in the fact that they spend their day at their desks, you know, moving money around the planet that is destroying their own children's futures, which I thought was a really good point. So it's really good to see these actions, and long may they continue, because I think it's the sustained nature of doing this kind of stuff that is going to cause maximum embarrassment to these people, as it should. So we have another action, an amazing action this week from Scientist Rebellion we're going to see now.
The 25th of March to the 28th of March, around 100 scientists around the world in about 12 to 15 countries will be taking direct action. If scientists are willing to sacrifice and be arrested and break the rules, then that will, we hope, inspire others to do the same. I am here taking direct action against this government. I am currently locked on. I'm not here to ask the government to do anything. I know they're going to do nothing. I'm here to beg people to rebel against this government.
So if David Attenborough says we can't be too radical, I don't think this is very radical.
The safe limit before we make the planet essentially inhospitable to life, called the hothouse Earth scenario, is between 1 and 3 degrees. So we're already in the danger zone, and we have a further about 1 degree of warming guaranteed, even if we stopped emitting fossil fuels tomorrow. So that means we have an incredibly short period of time to avoid making the planet essentially inhospitable to life, with billions of lives at risk.
We have to resist in any way possible. If you tuck your children to bed at night and say you love them and tell them that you'll do anything for them, that you also have to do this.
There are about 20 people with scientific backgrounds who are doing fasting for about 4 days. Symbolic nature of it being that many people are going to starve in the near future. 2 original members, incredibly crucial people to Scientist Rebellion, have just been imprisoned. One was just released, one is still in prison for an action on the Fridays for Future global strike in Ireland. We were just promised that we would have a green budget. Even the most optimistic were disappointed. They are giving £10 billion a year to fossil fuel companies through VAT reductions. So £10 billion a year of your taxpayer money is going to the people who are going to maybe make your children starve to death. That doesn't seem right. They are not protecting us.
Disrupt and do everything you can. Or how are you going to be able to sleep at night when everything goes bad?
Yeah, we need to credit Real Media. The wonderful Ricky at Real Media produced and edited that film. They do amazing work. So thanks to Real Media for that. And one of the other scientists that was also on the action and arrested at the same time was Charlie Gardner, who we could spend probably an hour talking to Charlie or longer. He's just done so much. But I think we have Charlie with us, hopefully. Hi, Charlie. How are you?
Hi, pleasure to be here. I'm very well, thank you. Great to be here.
Great. Just if you could just start off by telling us, we know you're a scientist. What's your sort of specific sphere, and what brought you to, doing this action?
So I'm a conservation scientist, a wildlife conservationist. So my expertise is really on the ecological crisis more than the climate crisis. So I also teach a module on climate change at the university, both sides of the crises. I'm a member of Scientist Rebellion. I wasn't actually at that action. I was arrested 2 days later with Mike again for posting papers in the media organization. So all these actions were of the Global Scientist Rebellion, which happened 2 weeks ago at the end of March. There were over 100 scientists from, I think, almost 20 countries took part. And as Scientist Rebellion, as Mike suggested in the video, our objective is to target the government or target corporations. Our main aim is to speak directly to scientists and encourage other scientists to join peaceful civil disobedient movements, because we feel scientists have a particular obligation, moral duty, given what we know, but we also have a particular power. We have a platform, and society trusts us. Society will listen to us. So we think scientists taking action is particularly powerful and important.
Thanks, Charlie. How do you find being a lecturer? Obviously, you're dealing with sort of impressionable young people. How do you sort of how are you sort of able to teach these people about what's going on without kind of ruining their mental health?
It's really tricky, actually, and in fact, it was that which drove me to join XR. There was no way I could be telling my students all this stuff and not be doing as much personally about it. So what I try to do, of course, I'm shocking some of the things I'm telling them are. So what I try to do is give them avenues for action at the same time. I think, telling the truth is, of course, vital. We all believe in this fundamentally. As you say, the truth is scary. And I think the key thing is to give people hope at the same time, not false hope, not empty reassurances, but give them avenues to take action. And so that's what I try to do. Students a lot about X they can do. Beyond action, I think the other thing that's important is taking care of our mental health. And we have a wonderful group of, small group of students amongst the students who I teach, who are really interested in ecological grief and climate anxiety, and setting up for the other students in my university. And I think that's a wonderful thing. That's really taking it upon themselves to look after their mental health as a group, and it's wonderful.
And Charlie, I've got to ask you: what's what's coming up next for you? Are you able to share with us what your plans are next? Or maybe they're under wraps for understandable reasons.
Yeah, so to be honest, I'm not in a position to say that, not just because they're under wraps, but because we're having a, the Scientist Rebellion just finished weeks ago, and it's important for us to reflect on that, learn from it, and yeah, a bit of rest too. I'm actually missing our Scientist Rebellion meeting right now to be here with you, so I'll catch up on the minutes and I'll let you know after that. But yes, get ready for some spicy actions from the Scientist Rebellion.
Well, thank you so much for what you've done and for, bringing science into the rebellion. You're absolutely right. We needed to see you guys. So thanks for everything you've done. I don't know if the sound might be, I don't know if we're overloading our system or what we're doing, but I'm apologising now. We had a few sound glitches earlier. But thank you, Charlie, and I'll let you get back to your meeting. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Henry, I think we're moving on to other news.
Yeah, I just wanted to say I thought that was a great interview there. Well done, Janet. I think that he really highlighted something quite important. Within science, there's this excess of objectivity, right? And it's what allows companies like Shell to lead these massive misinformation campaigns, and it's one of the reasons that we're in this mess. And so for scientists to be so brave as to take proactive stances, just as Mike and him have done, it really does prove like there is actually a correct answer to what's happening right now to the world within science. However, to link this all back to the police bill, Mike was arrested, as that video said, under terrorism bylaws, and as soon as he got to the station, they gave him a COVID fine. They use these laws as and when they please. And this new bill, basically all it does, it just allows them to do that, but with more breathing room, right? And that's what's so dangerous. But anyway, enough about that. I'll move on to Wandsworth declares now, right? Janet, would you like to?
Yeah, I can do a little bit, and then I'll hand back to you. Yeah, so Wandsworth Extinction Rebellion have rightly called out the local council, Wandsworth Council, like so many other local borough councils have declared a climate emergency and then done, frankly, absolutely nothing about it. In fact, not only have they done nothing about it, they've actually engaged in acts of ecocide, such as cutting down a 100-year-old plane tree close to the Winstanley estate in Battersea, because they weren't able to manoeuvre, I think it was around 1 foot to avoid where a cable was going to be laid. So the local community were literally in tears. We had Extinction Rebellion tree protesters up in the tree for around a week. But sadly, the tree did come down. This is probably about 10 days ago. I think you've got a little bit more info, haven't you, Henry?
It's not just trees. It's everything. How the council manages waste, plastics. It's just underwhelming, really. And like some councils are actually going about climate change really quite well, across the country. Certain companies have invested in these green pension-esque assets, which give them more control over how they invest their money sustainably. Companies like Abundance, they've created new regulatory financial assets, a bit like council community municipal bond investments. And they basically allow for councils to make developments that are far more conscious. And furthermore, they fund councils that are delivering green social projects to their local areas. And so it gives new life, it breathes new life, and it incentivizes council local politics. And I think that's really something. And for Wandsworth to sort of be laggarding behind as they are, it's disappointing, especially since they have such a prominent XR presence.
Yeah. So we've got a video of Wandsworth XR declaring open rebellion on Wandsworth Council. Let's take a look.
Wake up! Wandsworth! Wake up! Wandsworth! Wake up! Wandsworth!
There you go.
Beautiful.
So, as you've heard, 2 years ago, Wandsworth Council declared a climate emergency. And since then, they've done nothing to reduce air pollution, nothing to protect our green spaces, and they've continued to invest our money in fossil fuels. This from a council that wants to be the greenest borough in London and carbon neutral by 2030. With this small act of defiance, I redeclare that we are in open rebellion against Wandsworth Council.
There you go.
That's Matt there from XR Wandsworth, yeah. Matt isn't a great talker normally, so that was particularly incredible. That I think that was just spontaneous. So well done, Matt. Can we move on to other news?
Yes, I believe
I've got
what's coming up.
Yeah, what's coming up? We should have a little sort of like graphic and some exciting music playing, so if you can imagine that. So our first sort of global item is that Greta Thunberg is going to is rumoured to be boycotting the UN climate conference over vaccine inequalities. I'm not sure, you know, I kind of feel that I kind of want Greta to be talking wherever she can, but I totally understand what's behind this. What do you think, Henry?
Well, yeah, I'm like you. I'm a little bit conflicted. You know, on the one hand, she's this environmental activist. You know, a real idol. You know, within the area. You know, within the discussions. But then again, she's also a child. You know, and it's totally fair enough if she doesn't want to, you know, come all the way here and, you know, go against her morals with regard and her values with regards to travel and you know, speak in an event that she doesn't feel like she wants to speak in. You know, at the end of the day, there's enough, you know, UK activists, environmentalists who are willing to get down to the G7 and you know, say what needs to be said. So hopefully we can not let her down and we can do something equally as impressive. Yeah.
Yep, I hear you. I'm going to hand over to you now, Henry, because we've got quite a few other XR events coming up, haven't we? Quite a long list.
Yeah, so on April 12th, so tomorrow, we have the 7 people who were arrested during the Southwark Crown Court in London Shell protest action. And these include 2 Extinction Rebellion founders, and they are potentially being charged with £25,000 worth of criminal damage to Shell's HQ in London. Now, this is interesting because, of course, this is a plan, because it means that we are accusing Shell of openly will be put into a court and you know, be placed against a jury, and this could potentially be very powerful because it opens up a discussion as to whether or not Shell knew about, you know, the impacts of fossil fuel, you know, harvesting and fracking and so on. And it would obviously then potentially end in them being accused of ecocide, which would be very, very good, if you ask me.
Oh, they knew for sure. Yeah, so we also have photography image library training, and that's with Gareth. And I think there is going to be an email added to the chat for this thread. Is that right, Henry?
Yes, yeah. All links to relevant documents will be in the description, including my university-led study for any activist out there who's looking to get involved.
Great stuff. And also any links to Plastics Rebellion if you want to come and get involved in some creative and bonkers stuff outside our favourite plastics polluting conglomerate, INEOS, that will be in the pipeline, literally. There's also a monthly open call from XR UK media and messaging. Sorry, Henry.
Yeah, sorry, I was going to say, I also believe there's an event. You continue, go on, you continue, I don't mind.
I'll do mine, and then I'll pass over to you. So XR UK Media and Messaging have open monthly calls to anyone in the movement, and they're on the last Tuesday of every month, and that happens from 6 till 7:30 in the evening. There is a Zoom link that we'll also put in the links after this broadcast. Back to you, Henry.
Yeah, I believe there's a anti-war protest happening at the end of this month, thanks to XRISN, International Solidarity Network. Yeah, you heard it. Bit of a mouthful, but really great, promising event. And I'm going to say it's going to be online. You can access via Facebook, and it'll just be a great way to show you support without doing anything too direct and following COVID guidelines.
Excellent. There's also live stream training on the 28th of April. I'm not sure who that's with. Do you know who that is? That with you, Henry? I know you're a live streamer.
I'm going to say yeah, but I don't know. Again, the links will be in the description for this. One can only assume. Is that everything? Is that all the events that we have lined up for this episode?
I'm getting a live update here. It's actually with the live stream team. I think that could be Vlad. But anyway, we've got also on the 17th of April, we have more Kill the Bill actions up and down the country. More information to be made available nearer the time.
Keep your eyes out on your social media platforms, guys, because there are Kill the Bill protests happening all the time. There was one today in Falmouth, quite literally outside my house. I got a little bit of footage. I'm not sure if we can show that right now, but yeah, they're just, everyone around the country is showing support for these events, because at the end of the day, this is our fundamental right to protest, and they're going to take that away from us. It affects everybody, no matter what your activist priorities are. This is a very important cause, and yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It sort of kind of eclipses everything, doesn't it? I'm just getting another reminder to just keep in your diary the 30th of April, which is that Anti-War Resistance Day. It's called the Lotus Day. Obviously, there's some significance to the lotus flower. And that's the online event. I think that's going to be it, apart from to ask you to please share this live stream. We're going to play you another video in a minute of another Plastics Rebellion action, but and if you have an email, if you can email in to us any stories that you think should be mentioned in the weekly roundup next time, please send them in to us. I think the email is somewhere in the links. Is that right, Henry?
Yeah. All that relevant information is in the description.
So I think we are coming to the end, and I want to say, Henry, it's great co-hosting with you. I've never done this before. I don't think you have either.
No, and I've had a couple internet problems throughout, but I mean, we've made it to the end. I'm pretty happy with it. I hope that the viewers at home are happy with it, and yeah, maybe see you again sometime.
Absolutely. So I think we're going to leave you now with one more video from Plastics Rebellion, which was when we gate crashed the British Plastics Federation annual dinner. It was a big fancy do, lots of people in bow ties. We barricaded the way in, not with yogurt pots, but with our own bodies this time. So yeah, enjoy, and we will see you again very soon.
We're outside the Lancaster Gate Hotel. We are trying to disrupt the British Plastic Federation dinner.
The British Plastic Federation is made up of some 400 companies. So in the plastic industry in the UK, it's the third largest employer in the manufacturing section, and they're a very loud lobbying group. So the likes of the single-use plastic tax that the government have been trying to bring in, the British Federation have been blocking or trying to water down the regulations what the government's doing.
Our message to them is, you've disrupted the dinners of literally thousands of albatrosses, and you're responsible for the death of many marine creatures and ultimately us because of the amount of microplastics we all ingest. So we're disrupting their dinner.
In my tummy. We're going to have this wonderful banquet tonight.
Oh yeah!
We're going to be celebrating the tens of billions of pieces of plastic that we're pumping into our oceans. We're going to celebrate. We're going to have a feast. Just like all the animals across the world are feasting on plastics.
Did you know that most seafood has plastic in? Just eat it directly.
We can't recycle our way out of this problem. Where I live, in Wandsworth, we only recycle 21.8% of our waste is recycled. Okay, everything else ends up in the incinerator and is burnt. And incinerators are highly pollutant, they fail a lot, and here in London the incineration contributes to the poor air quality we have. So we're actually breathing in the toxic fumes from the plastics that we're burning.
We have albatrosses around our necks to symbolise the death of nature due to the ecocide of plastic pollution. So it's really a big demonstration against single-use plastics.
Rebellion! Extinction! Rebellion! Extinction! Rebellion! Plastic kills! Plastic!
You know, the way we're going to have more plastic in our oceans by 2050 than we do have of all forms of marine life. Okay, so this is a global, international problem that we need to stamp out. And the United Kingdom is a very powerful industry when it comes to the plastic industry. I think last year it was about 28 billion turnover that's going on in these rooms here where these guys control. So the government needs to bring in new legislation, very, very tough legislation. They need to bring in, you know, just ban all forms of single plastic, just ban it.